John Brock. And John Brock should be just like Doug Bidding. So you come to this app, which you can download for free from Arcus on the App Exchange, and you do a search for Doug Bidding. It goes ahead and finds all of your users who are Doug Bidding. You say, no, I don't want Doug Bidding 2. I want Doug Bidding 1, the original. You click on it. Now, keep in mind, this is actually on a mobile device. It's an S1 app. So it should be the minimal number of steps to have this person up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and add in John Brock. And it autofills some things. It makes some assumptions, but OK. I can maybe change it if I want. But keep in mind, the use case is I want this person up and running as fast as possible. So I should generate a new password and notify the user immediately. I hit clone. It says the user was successfully cloned. Now John goes and checks his email. He has a link. I go back to eating my Whopper, large fries, and Diet Coke, and everyone's happy. So this is an app. It just came out last week. You can go to clonethisuser.com. It's a free app offered from the App Exchange from Arcus. It's just fun. We like fun stuff. All right, so that was our movie trailer. And I see the clock's ticking, so I'm going to guess we can actually start. Oh, first off, we have to say thank you very much. You could be back at your hotel sleeping. You could be hitting beer 30 and having cocktails. But you chose to spend the 5 o'clock hour with us, and we appreciate that. We're really excited to talk about this feature that came out that we think is pretty cool. And the name of the feature is custom permissions, but the session is called Do It Yourself because in true maker faire kind of style, we believe everyone should be creating their own custom permissions. All right. Those who don't know me, my name is Adam Torman. I'm a director of product management here at Salesforce.com. I am a certified Salesforce administrator. Let me see a show of hands of people who are certified Salesforce administrators. Awesome. That's excellent. I think that's very cool. And a certified Force.com developer. Raise them up. Outstanding. Yeah, I love writing code. I'm horrible at it. They make fun of me. It's OK. It all works out in the end because they actually fix my code. Please feel free to follow me at @Torman or my blog, salesforcehacker.com, where there's tons of really good stuff about permission sets and profiles. All right, let's get started. Thank you. Thank you.
Couple readers.
Okay. What's that? Thank you very much. Thank you. OK, so our safe harbor, please make sure that you make all salmon purchasing decisions, especially seared safe harbor certified salmon, based on existing taste and texture, not based on future biogenetically engineered. I actually got this. A friend of mine was on date night. His wife was not happy that he was taking pictures of the menu on date night. No, this is actually our safe harbor statement, and it says, please make purchasing decisions based on existing functionality. But we're really excited to talk about some existing functionality today with custom permissions. It begs the question, why custom permissions? Well, because it makes it easy for developers to do their job and admins to do theirs. We created a separation of concerns that we think is pretty groovy in terms of being able to give you the flexibility to define your permissions. Well, when would you use them? You might use them when building apps on the Force.com platform, like an expense app or PTO app or a bug app. Who here, out of curiosity, has created an app already on the Force.com platform? All right, excellent. All right, second use case, when you want to authorize a connected app, which is off our platform, like a Concur or DocuSign. Do we have any ISV developers out there? All right, this still will be a very interesting use case for you. And then lastly, it's about success for our developers and admins and allowing them to do what they need. Now, just in case you're not familiar with our permissioning system, our permissions, the foundation of them, things like object create, read, update, and delete, or FLS, field level security, is about access to fields and columns, or user permissions, which give access to huge bits of functionality, like the ability to export reports or modify all data. All of these are encapsulated within something we call a profile. And that profile, every user of the Salesforce system has one and only one profile. That is a requirement of the system. However, permission sets, which came out a couple years ago, gave us a little bit more flexibility in the system to assign 0, 1, or many of them. And now we can start thinking about permission sets as applications, or regions, or lines of business. And it gives us some independence. So these things are containers of permissions. And it begs the question, well, what exactly is a custom permission? A custom permission is not something that we define here at Salesforce.com, like modify all data or read on accounts. A custom permission is what you define as part of your access control data flow. The definition is pretty straightforward. You give it a label, like an expense approver. You give it a name, just as any other name. It's for our API, so we have uniqueness. Maybe a description. And then finally, optionally, a connected app. And John will give us a great demo later that will take us through why that connected app is interesting. OK, so now I've got this bit of custom metadata. Assigning it to a permission set should be button-click easy. And this is where this diverges from a lot of other systems where you have to hard code in your access checks. In this case, I can go to my permission set called approver. And on the approver, I can go to my custom permissions option, new on that overview page. And I can look for all my available custom permissions, and I can pull them over point and click style so that now my user has access to it. All right, well, that's kind of cool. How do I then assign that permission set? Assigning permission sets is as easy as going to the user record. You'll see under the related list, there's permission set assignments. You click Edit Assignment. Again, click Assign. That person now has the embodiment of that permission. All right. That's kind of permissions 101 stuff. So we get into the question of, well, how do I actually check access? And this is where we start to dive off the deep end. Right? Because we have to talk about some of the inherent complexity that exists in that system of making it so easy to assign permissions. Right? At the top, we have a user. Those are the people who actually get the permissions. But on the way, a user goes to the permission set assignment, which goes to the permission set, which goes to set up entity access. So every single time we ask the question, does this user have access to something? If it's a user permission, we just have to tie it into the permission set. If it's a field permission, to field permissions at the bottom. But with a custom permission specifically, if I want to find out whether or not Jeff Gallagher has the right to approve an expense report, I need to go down to set up entity access. And that's an important thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind as we get into some development examples. Right? So I'm going to start to bridge the world of button-click admin and start to move a little bit further back to code and go back to my roots as a Force.com developer. Who here has ever seen SOCL? What is SOCL? A couple people. Anyone know what SOCL actually stands for? Beautiful. Salesforce Object Query Language.
See Adam for your prize after the session.
Absolutely. So I have a very cool tchotchke from the expo for you. So it's just like SQL, only it's really about how we understand our object schema. I use it for accessing accounts and contacts and opportunities through our API. And in this case, this is an example of how I might query all of my permission sets to find that approver permission that I just declaratively created. So I pull back information like its ID, its name. I can nest information such as the setup entity access bit. That's where that schema that I plugged in the back of my mind helps me to remember what's going on, as well as some other information like the parent name and the profile name. And I'm just simply filtering where that custom permission is called approver. All right. So the bad news is that's the most complex thing I'm going to show you. The good news is, new in Winter 15, this is something a lot of people have asked me for, which is kind of cool, that Belinda Wong, the new PM for admin, delivered. The ability to actually do this with a global variable. So $permission that developer name of that permission gives me access not only within my Apex code and Visualforce pages, which we'll see some great examples of, but also in other places like validation rules. Now, if you think about it, a permission is about should this user be able to do something. A validation rule is also about should this user be able to do something. Now I can create truly custom validation rules that an admin can point and click their way to paradise of assigning that custom permission. All right. So this creates a little bit of ambiguity with something we created a couple years ago called custom settings. Anyone out there using custom settings? All right. Now, this is kind of interesting. We talked to a lot of people about custom settings. It's a developer feature. It's basically a cached custom object. It gives you the ability to store name-value pairs. And one of the ways people use it is by creating custom settings that are permission-based. Anyone out there actually doing that? Right? Now, you can absolutely keep doing that. We're not getting rid of custom settings. Custom settings have a great use. But in the permissioning world, we worry about some things that are kind of important, like the integrity of the permissions, the validation of the permissions, the licensing of the permissions. And custom settings, we started to go down that path and we said, it's a little bit loosey-goosey, right? We needed to make sure that we could make this very, very easy and very sensical so that we could put it into this container of a profile permission set, right? So you can keep using custom settings, but we hope that after the session, you start to use custom permissions a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to stop talking because you really came here for the true value of seeing this stuff in action. And let's talk about our first use case. I'm going to bring up one of our fantastic speakers, Sukrutha, who's going to talk about building custom permissions on the Salesforce.com platform for Salesforce apps.
Thank you, Adam. Can you guys hear me? All right, so Adam talked to you about what custom permissions are and how to create them. I'm going to talk to you about how to use them, and it will give you more granularity for access checks. So how many of you have created expense reports before? No one? Oh, good.
Who's going to have to do one on Monday when they get back to course?
So many.
Don't ruin their trip.
So the situation here is that my manager can approve all expense reports while the rest of us can create them. And while my manager is on vacation or sick or whatever, I'm the temporary approver. And the only way I can actually approve these expense reports is if I have the appropriate custom permission. So I get an error message when I don't have the right custom permission, when I try to change the status on expense reports, or when I try to mass reject them, when we're having some sort of a freeze, and you have to mass reject all expense reports. So I'm going to show you a demo. So this is me. I'm logged in as me, and there's a list of expense reports, most of which Bharat has created. As you can see, there's an expense for hotel, flights, everything that you guys, a lot of you I'm sure have had to deal with. So imagine there's a freeze, like I said, and I want to go ahead and reject all of them. There, I get an error message saying that I'm not allowed to do so.
Of course not. You're peers with Bharath. Why should you be able to approve that?
Right.
I don't understand.
Exactly. Also, if I now try to individually try to change the status, right? What if I'm like, okay, maybe it didn't work for rejecting, but I try to change it to approved? Would I be able to do that? No, I'm not. It tells me I'm not able to do it because I don't have the right custom permission.
But I heard that your boss, Boomi, is out of town. Right? She's
Right.
off partying with Bruno Mars, and now you should have that ability.
That's right. So the way to handle this is the sysadmin has to go in and assign the custom permission to me. And as Adam already talked about this, you can assign a custom permission to a user either via a profile or a permission set. So I already have a permission set here that's called Dreamforce Expense Approver. I'm going to go ahead and manage the assignments of this permission set as a sysadmin. As a sysadmin, I'm assigning this permission set to me. Done. Now I should be able to change the status on expense reports and mass reject them if I want to, if I'm in a bad mood or something.
Really? You're going to reject Bharath?
Yes, absolutely. He spends too much money. 10,000? Good God. So I'm going to go ahead and reject this. Sorry, Bharat. Done. I was able to reject it. Woo!
So this is so cool. How did that actually work? What happened behind the scenes?
Yeah, one more thing, though, I want to say is that because there's so many other expenses, I want to go ahead and mass reject them. I can now see this button that allows me to do so.
It's like the biggest button I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's huge. You can see it from the moon. So how did this all tie in together, you ask? So when I go into the permission set, Just like Adam already talked to you, you can tie the custom permission to the permission set from here. And you'll see that I actually do have the custom permission already connected, which is why once I was given the permission set, I was able to approve, reject, or mass reject expense reports.
Wait, that doesn't look like CRUD. I'm expecting recreate, edit, delete, or at least edit, read. This looks like something totally different.
Yeah, and I can show you how it all ties in. Now, in the back end, how does it work, right? Adam already showed you that when you want to reference a custom permission, you use the $permission.custom permission name. And for the mass reject expense report page where it had that giant button, I wasn't able to see it when I didn't have the custom permission. And I got that error message that said, you are not allowed to mass reject expense reports. But when I did have that custom permission, I was able to see that giant pink button. And then when I tried to change the status on an individual basis, I actually had connected with the formula that was tied to the validation rule. And the way it's structured, it says that if you do not have the right custom permission and you try to change the status to reject or approved, you'll see an error message. So there you have it. Over to Adam.
All right, very cool indeed. All right, so that's if you're building apps on the platform. What happens when you're building apps off the platform? We have a phenomenal bit of technology that allows you to use OAuth and connected apps to build an app as an ISV or build off platform, but to connect in and understand the authorizations and the rights of a user who's been configured on Salesforce. So for that, I'm going to bring up to the stage John Brock, aka Heisenberg. He is a senior member of the technical staff. Please feel free to follow his bot on Twitter at _John Brock, or his very cool blog at techplustalk.com, where you'll see some very cool apps he's built, including the perm comparator.
Thanks, Adam. So just to start off with, just quick poll. Who out here only uses Salesforce? You don't have any other cloud apps, you don't have any other BI tools, you don't have any integrations, only Salesforce. One person.
All right.
Okay, so, right. We are in the cloud economy today, right? Everyone's using best-of-breed cloud services. You're tying those services together, but that creates a problem. What problem is that, you ask? You probably know it quite well. User access in all these different systems. How do you make sure that the access is controlled in a monitored way, in a way that you can change quickly, change easily, maybe make one change and then have it reflect across all your cloud apps? How do you even handle login? You know, single sign-on, or do you have individual user accounts for each cloud app? You know, that's a serious problem that we're facing now as we see more and more apps come into the enterprise. So what we have today is an example of how we can use custom permissions in a third-party app to make that problem go away. So what I have here
Kirkon.
is Kirkon.
Who's Kirkon?
It's an expense report app, quite similar to one that's relatively popular today.
I think it's actually the doppelganger of that popular app.
Yes, it was also developed quite quickly compared to that one, I'm assuming, and a lot cheaper. All right, so what we have here, I'm looking at this, I'm logged in, so I used my Salesforce login, and that used OAuth to get me to this page, and I can now see the expense reports that are currently in my system.
So we're not technically in Salesforce right now.
We're not in Salesforce at all. So take a look at the URL. This is running on Heroku. This is a Node.js app with MongoDB. This is completely outside of the Salesforce data center. You know, imagine this as your on-prem app, your cloud app, whatever app you may have that's not connected or not associated with Salesforce today. So how come I have access to see these expense reports? Well, if we take a look, this is all powered by Salesforce Identity through OAuth. So this is the raw identity response returned. And you can see here, custom permissions are now returned in the identity response from your OAuth login. So now, when I log in, I see these 4 custom permissions that are associated with my connected app, and if they're enabled or disabled for me as the user.
Wait a second, John. I thought that I had like millions and millions and millions of permissions. I have CRUD, and I have FLS, Apex Access. I only see like 4 permissions there. Why do I only see 4 permissions?
Well, obviously, Adam, you wouldn't want to return every permission. So we return the custom permissions which are associated with the connected app which is making that identity response request. So if you take a look here in my org, I've got the KuRCon custom permissions. And you see here I have approve expense reports, create expense reports, view the report owner, and then the actual view expense report itself. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So now you see it's linked to the connected app KuRCon. So obviously if I drill into this, then this brings up your beloved connected app page, which has the OAuth settings, etc. So you've seen me using this app and how I'm able to view the expense reports. But it's come to my attention that Adam is trying to log in. So this is the app. So now I am logged in on this website is Adam Toyman. You can see his name at the top. Doesn't have a profile yet. It's unfortunate.
I'm always smiling, though. That's true.
He's always smiling. So what he's going to do, he's going to open up KuRCon, and he's going to do login with Salesforce. This is your typical OAuth request, just like you've seen for Facebook, Twitter, these other apps currently. We have that for Salesforce. And Adam's going to go ahead and allow this because he does want to, submit an expense report. Oops. Unfortunately, Adam does not have access. Or maybe fortunately. I don't know.
I want access, though. I'll file an IT help desk ticket, whatever it takes.
Yeah, okay, well, if you want to go to that level, then, we'll look at modifying your access. So as the admin, remember, now I am in Salesforce as the admin. I'm not modifying anything in this cloud app, this third-party app, this IT app. I'm modifying directly in Salesforce exactly the way I permission all my other objects in Salesforce today. So all I'm going to do, I've got a couple permission sets created with those specific custom permissions assigned. I'm going to choose that Adam can create an expense report because I know he went to Dreamforce this week. He probably had to eat out. So I'm going to give him that access. And so now I've saved that. And when I flip back over to Adam, when he refreshes this, he now gets that option to create a new report. Because that custom permission that was assigned in Salesforce is now being requested by KuRCon, and his new access has been updated. So now he has access to create that report.
You mean I didn't even have to bounce the Node.js server?
No, you didn't have to reset, you didn't have to relog in. This just happened, right? This is great. This is the power of using the Salesforce Identity Service to log in. So let's say Adam had some food expenses.
I had a burger and large fry and a Diet Coke while I was cloning a user.
Oh, okay, so let's say San Francisco. So that's what, $110?
22 cents.
All right, so let's just say Adam had $100 in food expense, and we're going to submit this, and he still doesn't have access to view. So again, we can assign Adam that permission just to make sure that he can confirm his expense report has been submitted successfully.
It's interesting. A while back, I had a customer who asked me, they said, I don't understand why when I create something in CRUD, object permissions, I have to have read. My use case is I want to create leads, but I don't want anyone to see those leads because after they're inserted in, I don't want anyone to poach them. I want to have control. By creating a custom workflow through custom permissions, you can basically get around that cardinality of CRUD.
Yes. So now I've assigned Adam the view permission. And so now he can view the expense reports. Obviously, I don't want him to see who submitted the reports just for anonymity. But if I flip back over to my dashboard as the approver of the expense reports, I now see Adam Torman's expense report. And then the beauty of this is since you logged in with Salesforce, this is tied directly with your Salesforce org. So if I look at Adam Torman and I don't know who that person is that requested that, I'm linked directly back into Salesforce on Adam's profile. So that link has been established between the third-party app, which is completely outside of Salesforce, and Salesforce itself. So now you have that deep link. That's pretty cool, I think.
So that's pretty tightly coupled.
It's very tightly coupled now. And so the problem now is I can't approve or reject Adam's expense report because I don't have the correct permission. I can only see the owner and view them. So I'm simply going to give myself the approve permission. And when I flip back over to this guy, I can now approve or reject. So, Adam was working pretty hard, so I'm going to go ahead and approve this. And so now you can see instantly that status of that expense report has been approved. And like we were mentioning, all this permissioning is done through your existing Salesforce permission framework. You can have this through permission sets, profile. It would work the same way if I assign these Kirkon custom permissions to a profile. When you logged in, those custom permissions would come back through that identity response like we showed before, right? Just here. So now you see approve is coming back as true before it was false. And with that, you can basically tightly couple these third-party apps with your Salesforce identity and your Salesforce access controls and your established user access now to use and extend any cloud app or IT app that you might build in the future.
And one of the nice things about this, and the reason why you only see 4 permissions and not millions of them, is it's a least privilege model. We can ensure that that application does not have access to the totality of what a user can access in an org. There is no security leakage. It is a least privilege model that way.
Right. Thank you. So let's take a look at how this is actually working. Maybe. The mouse anywhere? Nothing. Got nothing. We're stuck.
Here, talk through it.
No, we got it here.
You got it? All right.
Okay. All right. So this is JavaScript, as you can tell. Some of you probably love it. Some of you hate it. I've been playing with Node just as a side project. But this app was written in Node. This is an example of the function, which basically updates the status of the expense report to either approved or rejected. So you can see at the very top it says app.get/expense report/ the ID of the report / status. So basically, when I make a GET request to that endpoint on the Kirkon server, it comes to this code. And then the real magic happens here. var can approve. So this checks the response. That response is coming from get identity. Get identity is actually coming from Enforce, which is a community-written Node module for Salesforce, which is already implemented. So you can just pull that into your Node app, have OAuth already implemented for you, have REST, have streaming, have all your API functions. Just import that as a dependency, and then it's included, and you can just use that directly. So the response that comes back now contains custom permissions, like we saw in the JSON response. I check the developer name. If that equals true, then I can approve, and I can come in here and update the value of the report status right here in the else block. At the very bottom, you can see if can approve is false, this if statement is false. So we fall down here to this else condition. This returns a 403, access is forbidden.
Denied.
Denied. And you can't access that page, or you can't make that method, right? Because like on the UI, we saw there's a link for approve or reject. But the way HTTP works, I could do a GET request, but this is actually checking the actual request. So the link can be hidden, but if we didn't check this in the actual method, someone that knew that endpoint could have approved it. So now we put that access check deep into the actual code of our app. We also have it coded in the UI layer so that you don't see links which are broken. And where can you get this? Where can you see it? It's live today. So I've created a managed package. It hasn't gone through security review preface, but it does have the connected app, which I'm using for Kirkon. And it has the custom permissions and the permission sets that you've seen today. You can install that in your dev org and basically try out kirkon-expense.herokuapp.com on your own org. It's multi-tenant, and just like Salesforce is, that was written. You don't get that for free, but you can use it for your org today if you want to go try that out and just kind of play around with it. Also, the code's all on GitHub, and feel free, let me know. I'm not a Node expert, so I'm sure there's plenty of places it can be improved.
Fuck that code.
Yeah. Anyway, with that.
All right. Thank you very much,
turn it back
John
over.
Brock. to Mr. Brock. All right. So the first two use cases really were about building apps on our platform and off our platform. But one of the use cases I used to hear all the time was, I want to be able to track and categorize my profiles and permission sets. I want custom fields on profiles and permission sets. And this last set of demos we're going to see from Bharath, who's going to show us how you can use custom permissions in a very anti-pattern of creating administrative tools that help you do your job.
All right, thanks Adam for the introduction. Good evening, everybody. So how many of you here actually manage permission sets? It's great. I see a couple of hands here and there. All right, so let's take a look at the problem, the current scenario. There is a sysadmin, a happy sysadmin. He is managing an org which has a department and some users. He has some perm sets. The company is making some revenue, and slowly they have more departments in a different geographical location and more departments and more users. As a result, more permission sets. And there are more departments now and in a different geographical location and more number of permission sets.
Does that happen to anyone out there? Magical growth? Yeah.
Slowly, the sysadmin is no more happy. He starts scratching his head. He's like, I cannot manage these many permission sets. It's too difficult for me to handle. All right, so currently there are sysadmins who are actually using the description field on permission sets and profiles to provide the additional information about a particular permission set. But this is okay when there are few permission sets, but as the permission sets grows into hundreds or thousands, it's really difficult for them to manage the permission sets. So we have a solution here. The solution, profile perm set categorizer, right? So this is a great solution which will be in handy for all those sysadmins who are managing permission sets which are large in number in an organization. So let's talk about the use case. So it's a very good use case of custom permissions, which helps in categorizing the permission sets based on region, department, and department size. Not only these, you can actually provide custom criteria on how you want these permission sets or profiles to be categorized. It helps in better management of profiles and permission sets as well. And it's a very good example of customization on top of Salesforce metadata, which customers are always looking for.
This sounds cool. Can we actually see how this works?
Yes, definitely.
I want to get my hands on this tool.
So, all right. There is this tool. Let's select a department here, IT, region, America, and size is large, and let's see how many permission sets belong to this criteria. Oh, it's timed out?
No, just click find again.
All right, there you go. Cool. We have the permission sets and profiles belonging to this category, right? It's not only showing you the permission sets actually, but you can actually go to these permission sets from this page, and you can manage those permission sets, like assign it to different users or remove it from the existing users or change the system permissions from those permission sets. So what is actually happening here? You see this department, IT, healthcare, education, the region. What are these? These are nothing but custom permissions, actually. If you guys don't trust me, I can show you real quick.
We don't trust you.
No.
You don't trust me, John. All right.
Trust but verify.
All right. So there you go. You see these custom permissions called America, Asia, Education, Europe. So these are the custom permissions which are tied with the permission sets, which we are displaying in the permission set categorizer. So let's take a look at one of the permission set. Let's see this permission set, account industry, right? Let's go to this permission set and categorize it. Let's say it belongs, the org is in America, it's a small org, and belongs to this healthcare department.
So you're saying I don't even have to be a developer to use this feature. I can actually just create these custom permissions just for categorizing my profiles and perm sets.
Yes. Yes.
Very cool.
All right. So now we have categorized this permission set called account industry into this category called America, healthcare, and small. Now let's go back to this tool. When we select healthcare, America, and the size of the department, we expect to see that permission set here, and there you go, we have this permission set here. So we saw how this works, like how we can categorize permission sets by assigning custom permissions. So this is just an example of IT healthcare education. These are custom permissions, so we can create custom permissions called account or financial, and we can assign them. We can categorize them based on those criteria as well. So moving back. All right, so we saw the use cases and we saw the demo of how to use the categorizer. Seems like I'm stuck here with the slide.
It's on the screen, so just drag it.
Here, tell us a little bit about the code that you had to write for this. Is that guy? There you go.
All right. So how is this actually happening at the software level? So basically, we are grabbing the custom permission. We are grabbing the information of a particular custom permission, and then this query actually helps us in grabbing all the permission sets or profiles which are assigned to that custom permission. So this is a very simple tool built using a Visualforce page and Apex code, and you can get this from this GitHub account, which will have information on how to use this Visualforce page and Apex. That's it. I hope everyone enjoyed the session about this perm set categorizer.
Thank you very much, Bharat. Very cool. All right, we're winding down the session. Just a quick note, if you haven't heard or you don't know about our platform keynote, we've got a lot of great features that have come out in the past couple releases since we saw you at last Dreamforce. Mike Rosenbaum, our EVP, is going to be presenting tomorrow, along with Todd Nielsen from Heroku, and some great customers at 2 p.m. Also, earlier in the day is the first ever admin keynote. Highly recommend checking that out. Mike Gerholt will be delivering that. The developer keynotes tomorrow? Wow, there's a lot of keynotes tomorrow. All right. So before we all take off and we go back and we get ready for Bruno Mars, we would love to take a couple questions. We had a mic. Do we have any questions? Here, Belinda, do us a favor. Pass. You got it? Okay. While the mic's running up, by the way, there is a survey for the session. We would love to hear your comments and if this was effective. Yes, please.
Okay, the dollar permission notation, is that going to be available in triggers as well as workflows and formulas?
Great. Belinda? John, do you have that other mic?
It's available in validation rules, formulas, as well as a reference in the Visualforce pages. It will not be available in Apex code. You'll be expected to do the query on the setup entity access for performance reasons because of the bulk aspect of Apex. No, not triggers.
But it's trivial. It's trivial to use it.
Well, because there is the ability to do the triggers in bulk, and you need to actually bulkify your triggers, so we weren't, the global variables is not quite designed for that.
Oh, well, it's loud, sorry.
Happy birthday. All right, yes.
So that Visualforce page, were those values for like the the IT and the different continents, were those hard-coded in the page? Or was it querying them dynamically?
Yes, for this demo it was hard-coded, but it's a little tweak in the code, and you can add whatever categories you want to. You can add finance or anything. It's a very little change in the code. Hopefully very soon I'll be coming up with a customized version of the page so that you can create the categories on fly without making any changes in the Visualforce page and stuff.
You can make it basically a multi-select list.
Right, so it was hard-coded for the demo, just for time's sake. You could use Sockle to be able to pull it out and generate that in the page. It's just additional code.
I did. I just earlier today you said you have a website, salesforcehacker.com.
Yes.
Okay, and could I pose like a question? I have like a really complicated profile permissioning issue, but
We love complicated profile permission
good, I'll
questions.
email you on it.
All right.
Thank you.
Using the Salesforce identity, you were exposing a lot of the custom permissions. Is that just through the identity piece, or do you get that same response back through normal RESTful or SOAP API calls?
Yeah, good question. That is only if you're using connected app. Otherwise, if you're just doing a normal username password through REST, you're going to get the full access to all permissions. So then it becomes a question of what permissions you're requesting, whether the Sockle's for field permissions or setup entity access or user permissions. So
as long as the request is from a connected app context, you'll be able to just go to /ID and get it. Yeah. Yes.
In the use case with the temporary permission sets, what's the best solution for giving, say, access for someone for a week? Can you put time restrictions on those, or find an alternative way to do that?
So, that's an interesting bit of functionality we've talked about for a while internally. I think actually John Brock has a patent on that.
It's not done. I have the patent for it, though.
Right now, you have to basically create an automation service to be able to handle that. The API enables that process very easily. What isn't enabled is a countdown, right? So you could use something like Batch Apex and basically schedule that out so that in the future, we take away a permission set that's assigned. To be honest, it's a little clunky, right? We think we can probably do better. It's just not there today. It's a good question, though. It's good to hear that there's interest in that. Who here would be interested in using a time-based permission set assignment?
I've got my next side project.
All right, our AV guy is wrapping up with one last question. Gentleman in the black jacket.
Yeah. Just very last question. Permission sets, anyway, if you are, let's say, transferring the knowledge to someone else who is becoming your administrator, this person can get the information about the permission set only if there is a good nomenclature, meaning if you have very descriptive permission set. Is there anything in the future planned which may help to get this information faster, beside that if someone didn't put the description, you need to go inside and check everything inside, what the fuck it is this permission set said? Yeah.
Right, so if I heard that question properly, is there a way we could get a high-level summary of what's in that permission set so we can understand the intent beyond just simply a description? I heard a yes, please over there. Belinda, what do you think? I think there might be some options here for us to talk about some future work. When we first built the profile UI, the enhanced profile UI, we discussed this at length. The challenge was what's important to one person isn't necessarily important to others. So we left it very open and ambiguous so that you could build tools like what Bharat showed you using the API. I think it'd be interesting to have a follow-up conversation what you would envision as giving you enough information to be dangerous without too much information which would bog you down in detail. So signal to noise. So if you like, I would love to take your card and we can have a follow-on after Dreamforce.